let's talk about Extinct, of course. It sounds a very mature album that sums up many of Moonspell's distinguishing features, combining them into a very powerful alchemy. I really liked it. So, which were your goals, and how did the concept of Extinction came out?
Well, first we have to see that this album was written in a shorter period of time compared to the previous works that we've done, and that obviously it's not so obvious, but you could have a concept in the beginning, but we didn't. Usually we develop the concepts, and for me it's very important artistically to have a concept behind a work, but in this case it was quite spontaneous, and that had two results. First was that the concept was also developed during the process of composition, so the two things weren't linked in the very beginning. They weren't tight, but the whole musical path and the lyric path put them together eventually. So, and this was happening very fast. And then the second consequence was that we didn't overproduce the album before it was recorded. So also a lot happened in studio. The concept of Extinction, it came out through this very strong feeling of personal loss. That means that you have all these persons that disappear in our life. I mean, the most known is Pedro still, but some other friends that each one of us has, and we felt it in a way as an extinction of a species of person. And we also feel, and I really identify a lot with this concept, because there's also the extinction of parts of yourself during the life, and sometimes you miss yourself eventually, and music and art in general let you allow you to visit again these lost places in yourself. And so this is how I look at it, and obviously each one of us has a different interpretation of the concept. That's how it's supposed to be.
Good. So, second question. You decided to be involved altogether in the whole creative process, working, playing, composing close to one another. How much has this feature influenced the final result? You want to tell something about the creative process?
All the albums are a consequence of everyone's work, and especially everyone's experiences of life, because basically what we do in the composing process is share feelings without words, really. Besides the vocals, the instruments are just expressing themselves, and of course we have to be restricted to the Moonspell whole concept. Nowadays we don't want to run away from it. We want to challenge it in a different perspective. So we really like what we do musically. Obviously, I think everyone would like to do a project of this, or to play a different style here and there, but we know that Moonspell is what it is, and we try nowadays to do albums that fit the personality of the band, and not don't run away from it, but for challenging it. And I think challenge was the basis of the creative process on this album. We would have to challenge ourselves, and we try to find also places where we weren't as often in these latest albums. For instance, we recorded it all in the studio in the long process, and we didn't do that for quite a while. We would mix different places for recordings. And for creating process, basically, of course, the very basic ideas, the musical ideas, they always come from a moment when you're by yourself. But the development of that is what really substances the composition. So it's not a question that when Ricardo or me, or we come up with an idea, but it's on the exchange of ideas over it that we develop the music that you can listen. So in this case, that happened very fast, and for me it was very important to put the vocals in an early stage of the composition. This because we wanted to do a more melodic album. We never know what we want, but we knew we wanted to go more for the gothic side of Moonspell.
Less growl, more melodic, the vocals, I see.
Yes, also, especially on that. It wasn't really a voluntary choice, but we knew that the songs would be more melodic. We had this feeling, and from that moment on, I personally was investing a lot that the vocals would come very early, on an early stage, because once you create vocal melodies, they have to guide the song.
Yeah.
In my opinion, and to do harder songs with screaming vocals, you can do the whole music before and put the vocals on top of it. But with melodic vocals, I don't. We used to do that in the past, but to me it works a lot better if the music follows the vocals than the opposite.
Okay. So some songs have melodies with a decided Middle Eastern flavor.
Yeah.
Your musical and personal roots are deeply Mediterranean.
Yeah.
So how much Lusitanian culture influences or has influenced your music and the specific feelings which led to the concept of extinction?
The thing, of course, these are two different questions. The specific feelings that
if they are linked or not, maybe.
Of course they are. When you seek for influences such as the Persian influence in Portugal, you're looking for a lost culture, which is this Iberian, so Spain and Portuguese Arabic influence is very, very hard, and the new species that came out of that Persian culture are deeply into the music that we do, the traditional music. The most famous one international is the flamenco, and if you listen to flamenco carefully, the melodies are very similar to the Arabian ones. The scales are very much like in the neighborhood. And in Portugal we have the most traditional music, and the most famous one is fado, and fado is even more into the Arabic music. Even the sound of the Portuguese guitar, which is unique in the world, sounds a mixture between bouzouki and this kind of string instruments in Middle East, and together combined with the traditional acoustic flamenco guitar. So there's a lot of musical influence there, and obviously I think Moonspell, who knows Moonspell well, knows that the first album, the first CD that we released, an EP under the Moonspell, was completely full of Arabic influences, because I mean, we used to say at that time, and I think that applies a bit, of course, with the difference of time, of what we do with regarding that music. The Norwegian black metal brings the ice, and southern black metal brings the fire. That's what we try to bring to gothic music as well, to bring a little bit of the sensual and there's something really sexual about it, and this fire that we are talking about has to do a lot with the way that Portuguese people are, the Latin people, the Mediterranean people are. The way we connect to each other is a lot more burning than what northern people bring,
Of course.
And we think it's important also. I think it's very important that the music has personality, that has each band has its own trademark. And just to copy, it's cool. I like bands that do that. Some of them do it very well, but I like this to distinguish where bands come from.
Okay, that's good. So I have a question for the lyrics, but I know that it's Fernando, so.
I know, but I also know the lyrics. You can give it a try.
I wanted to ask for the lyrics that Fernando often written about love in all its forms in a very decadent and charming way.
Yeah.
But on this album, I get a feeling that there's more romanticism involved.
More?
Romanticism.
Romanticism.
Yeah, I feel more romanticism. I don't know if it's because of private life, changes in life. I don't know.
No, all I can say, I think the lyrics on this album are, in a way, they are more. They got more mystic, and it easily follows to the fantasy world. But on the other hand, they are very honest as well. There's no fear, there's no barrier, there's no communication barrier in the lyrics. Okay. They talk about really deep feelings, but it's easy to understand.
Yeah, not hermetic like some old lyrics.
Yeah.
Very cryptical.
On the other hand, the way that Fernando reports to love on the lyrics, in my interpretation, it's very dramatic, and it always has an end, like an end point at the end of the sentences. And I also identify very much with that. I mean, I always said, since I'm a young person, that love is drama, and we just attach to it. But it's mostly a problem than...
Yeah, but I had these more positive feelings. I don't know why. More than in the past.
I don't know. Maybe it's the music, because...
Maybe it's my interpretation, of course.
Yeah, there's always... He was always a person that wrote dark stuff about dark stuff with a bright light.
Yeah.
You know.
Darkness and hope.
Yes, and in this case, I remember The Future is Dark.
Yeah.
It's a really sad song and with sad lyrics, but there's a sparkle there. There's something.
Stay together like.
But it gives a path. On the other hand, it's not like an abyss that you're walking to. You know. So in that area, I think they're a bit more positive. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Then, in the DVD Road to Extinction, one can perceive a strong interaction with the producer Jens Broen.
Yes.
Yeah. He seems to have very specific ideas and personal contributions for the record. Why did you choose Jens, and how was to work with him?
Well, Jens was a choice from first. The name came out from what he has been doing lately. He did some very strong records and some others that sounded really good to us. Secondly, we got informed about him, and we always like producers that influence the music. We don't like to get a good sound engineer. That's easier to get, and for instance, Tu was very good. Tu Madsen, he was really good sound engineer, let's say this way, because to produce is something else. To produce is to work on the music and then have a plan how it comes out in studio. Jens had both of the qualities. I was very unsure when we started to work with him, because he didn't change the songs that much of what we did, and I always like producers that change a lot of songs, but he didn't. He didn't, and apparently he was right not to. But the changes that he did, they substantially changed the whole picture at the end of the album, and his contributions were a lot to prepare the band for the studio in a way that it was still open to changes. And structure-wise, we defined everything. When we came into studio, then the changes started to happen, because then he could be more specific about every instrument. And he got the Turkish orchestra going, so this was something that we didn't even know what melody would come out of there before they recorded. And he also had an orchestrator to fix the orchestral parts that are programmed. He also, I mean, overall, he had always a very determined idea, and we could tell that. And And for us, it isn't difficult to work with a producer
Okay.
at all. I think we also make his life very easy because we're pretty much open-minded to any
To
changes, and we just, in my case, I just want to feel that the producer is sure of what he's doing, and this is something you can connect with.
Okay, good. So, the tour started last week, and you've played several gigs so far. How is it going? How are fans reacting to the new songs?
Well, very well, and we've been having more and more audience coming to the shows. That's very interesting because it started well, but it has been growing. I mean, here and there it wasn't so good, but most of the shows have a lot more people than expected. And people start to know the CD very well, even though it's pretty early. You know, the CD was released 10 days ago.
Yeah.
A little bit more, like
6 March.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like almost 20 days ago, and now people start to really get familiar with the album and the songs live. I think they work great. It's always different, but we had the same attitude for the live performance as we had for the studio or for the songwriting. That we don't want to overproduce. So it's very clear the elements on the live show, and I think that's very interesting because people can still listen to the song like it is, but it's louder and you listen every element.
Yeah.
You know, it's not so massive in this way, and I think that's very surprising also. But our live show is more dynamic nowadays. Because we've been playing hard songs in the last 2 albums, and the set lists were always pretty heavy for you know, within the Moonspell catalog, and now it's a bit different. Now we have more dynamic elements, so there's really quiet parts and strong parts, and it's more atmospheric, and I think that has been pleasing people a lot because it's different from what bands are choosing from, mostly in a heavy metal scene, which is this big scene we are into. Although we love it, that's not an issue at all. But we want to present something different within the metal scene, and the live performance is as outrageous as the album, I would say.
Okay. Some curiosity. Can you tell us what is the strangest place where you've played in over 20 years of career?
Whoa. I mean, there's
if there is a strangest place.
Exactly. If you say a strangest place to play, to play is one thing, because the strangest place, I mean, sometimes surprisingly America is pretty strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, United States are pretty strange in some places.
For the people or the places?
For everything.
Everything.
Sometimes it looks like you're in a movie. It's
really?
Yeah. But on the other hand, it's quite familiar because you know it from the movies, from the series. You get so much American culture. But they do very well these kind of productions because they really represent how the country is. But you can't believe it until you were there. It's like, this is for real? They really talk like this? Is this happening? So for me, sometimes the clubs are very strange. Sometimes the people showing up to the shows are very strange. So in the United States you find really awkward situations. But I think you would like to hear an answer like Morocco, we played the show there, and it was quite strange. It was really good, but it was quite strange. Or Bolivia, that was very strange because you're playing in La Paz, and La Paz is like 3,600 meters high.
Wow.
So it's really, you really need to chew the coke leaves and to breathe oxygen during the show. Yeah, but the fans are real. The fans are real. So I don't know. There's strange days. That's what I can tell.
Okay.
But strange places. It's more difficult.
Um, okay, one doesn't hear often about a metal band from Portugal.
Yeah, you're right.
Is there any young band that you would recommend? And after your success on a large scale, do you think that you managed to bring more Portuguese people to the metal scene or influence young musicians in your country?
Yeah, we influence a lot of bands in our country, but unfortunately none of that style could outcome so far, even in the small Portuguese metal scene. When we started to have success, there was we say we had a step on the door, so to keep it open, and there was a really good band. They're still on now. They actually doing good albums called Heavenwood, and they actually signed for I can't remember the label, but it was German, another German label. It wasn't Nuclear Blast, wasn't Napalm, was something else.
Okay.
And they started to tour and then they quit after a while. But now bands are starting to struggle, and the metal scene is growing a bit. There was the metalcore euphoria for a while, like 5 years ago. There was also the post-rock development, but that's already goes a bit out of the metal. But there was no bands really. When you talk about new bands, maybe I'm ignorant, but so far I can tell that the quality of the bands has improved a lot. Every time that I see Portuguese metal bands playing now, they play quite well.
You mean underground bands? Or?
Yeah, and some of them are trying hard in more to the hardcore scene. I know more than 1,000. They're trying very hard, and they actually tour. But on other styles, there is really good stuff. I mean, that combo is a great stuff, like kind of Western spaghetti soundtrack.
Okay.
They're really good. Only 2 guitars, so it's without vocals. But they have really good stuff musically. There's also a band where Fernando participates quite often called Bizarra Locomotiva.
Okay.
And they sing in Portuguese, but I don't think in that case it matters that much. But it's really cool. It's like between Young Gods and Rammstein and Nine Inch Nails, Marilyn Manson, like this kind of stuff. They do it very well. I really like the band. I'm a big fan of them. So that's it.
Okay. A more personal question. We are experiencing a very bad crisis in Italy, and nowadays the dream of making a living with music is very far away. So, what is your situation? Is it your music enough to live on, or is it hardly possible for famous and talented musicians to as well?
Yeah, you know that Portugal even had to borrow money to go on working. So I believe that we have suffered a crisis even harder than Italy. Also because the life standard in Portugal was for a start lower than the Italian one. Nevertheless, in Italy, I'm aware there's a big gap between the north and the south of Italy. So I believe in Italy there's more poverty than in Portugal, but there's also more richness than in Portugal.
A few people are very
yeah, but the standard in the north is higher, I think, than any standard in Portugal, but the standard in the south of Italy is lower than any standard in Portugal. If you can make living out of music, we can because we have really nice structure. We were talented and hard working people with luck that got through the market, and nowadays we have, when a country is in crisis, there's another one who isn't, and we earn our living everywhere. So we are not limited geographically. But for bands in Portugal it was really hard, especially these bands that were in the charts, like pop bands or whatever, but they could play maybe, I don't know, 30 concerts in Portugal well paid, and nowadays they maybe have 3, and of course divided by the band members that's going to be almost nothing. You can't make a living out of it. But we do well because we also are very organized in question of money. We don't throw money away, and we also have a big support of all the team that works around Moonspell, and people are very much willing to work to Moonspell, and we try to split when we earn more money. We try to share with them, and the opposite happens. So we can still have a good quality of life and good quality of so professionally. But one is not an island, you know. That's the biggest problem. I'm not just one. I have neighbors. I have a neighborhood. I have people living around me. I have family. I have friends, and the crisis affected a lot of people that I know that got really unemployed and had to change a lot in their lives. And sometimes it's quite dramatic. On the other hand, we know that I am a father myself, and my kids are way worse educated than what they would be like 10 years ago, because the crisis affects not only the money situation, but also the conditions, things that have a lot of value. For instance, education, because if you educate a society, you'll earn more money in the future, for sure, that's guaranteed. But you know, it's very easy for governments to cut on the education because kids don't vote, and the results come in 20 years, not in their elections time. And of course, in health, you also feel a lot. But you know, I'm really sorry about this. And if I start to think to talk about politics, it's all gonna go down to this new system, the capitalism, that money is more important than the conditions of life, and there's a human factor that is missing here. So we have to be intelligent enough together to find a better system.
Or we'll go to extinction.
Maybe. That's the thing. That's the thing, because it also happens then with the fuel. We destroy a lot the nature, and since you talk about that, it's really dangerous what we're doing to the world. Now it's proved scientifically. There are no buts at this moment.
We all know this, but nobody can do anything.
Because of the money. Because just to make money, it's stupid, because we say, look, do you prefer money or to live well? If you give everything without the money, you can have the same life without the money, but you don't destroy nature, and you educate your kids. So it's they have to fix something. We have to fix something. It's everyone's choice as well.
I don't know if we are able to. Okay, that was the last one. So I just want to thank you, wish you all the best for the tour, and last word for the readers. Say whatever you want.
I mean, what I want is people to get hold of our album and to listen Moonspell album, because I really believe, and I'm very demanding in musical taste, and I really believe this is a wonderful album. It's something very different, very unique, but still, for the ones that follow Moonspell, it's not like highly surprising. It is surprising in the sound wise, but the songs are really musical, Moonspell style.
They are familiar.
They're very familiar, and so with these two ingredients, I think it's really important that people listen to it, because it's different from something else, and nowadays I think that's very important.
Of course. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.